Welcome to the Prodigy Way Podcast. I'm your host, John Grammer. So in 2009, God led my parents, Russell and Amy, to step away from their jobs in the public education system and to join him on a mission to reach America's youth through education. Over the years, God has led our amazingly skilled staff here at Prodigy to create what we now refer to as the Prodigy 21. These are the core practices and principles we adhere to in order to create the highest quality and most optimal individualized learning experience for every one of our students. Thank you so much for joining me this week as I sit down with one of our professional educators and we discuss just what makes Prodigy so unique, why we're getting such amazing results, and as we do a deep dive into the Prodigy Way. Today I'm joined by my mother, Amy Grammer, co-founder and associate director of Prodigy Leadership Academy, and Becky Campbell, one of our first and second grade lead teachers. And today we're going to be discussing multi-age classrooms. Now, in most classrooms across America, classes are made up of students who are within a 1-year age range. The majority of students move through grades solely based on their age and their average performance, which again, average is like C, 75% or so. But at Prodigy, our classes combine 2 traditional grade levels worth of students into one class. For example, pre-K and kindergarten, first and second grade, third and fourth grade. So let's talk about why we do this and what are some of the unique benefits of approaching education in this manner.
One of the biggest benefits that I see is when you put children of different ages into a classroom, they learn from each other. I saw all kinds of walls fall off because they're not all supposed to be the same. And there you take away comparing, you take away competition. There's still the competition that they want or the desire to learn, but that comes because they're seeing what older students are learning. They're interested in that, and so they're excited about learning the next thing. But it doesn't set it up on a playing field of they're all supposed to be doing the same thing, because the reality is they're not all doing.
Because a lot of them can't meet that mark, and a lot of them can go way beyond that mark.
Correct. And so when you take the boundaries off, the freedom for the older or the ones that can go further, faster, they get to go further faster. Therefore, they're excited and they're wanting to continue to learn that next thing. And likewise, the ones that are struggling, it's okay. You're not all supposed to be. And so they finally feel safe. Hey, that's okay. That's who that child is. And this is who I am. Bless you. And this is who I am. And so any fear and wall, they just come off.
Yeah. So, Becky, do you think you could talk a little bit about how this looks in your first and second grade classroom? Do you have any specific instances that come to mind of how you saw a student grow and develop in being a younger student, so a first grader, and then also how that student maybe has grown being a second grader now in your class?
So when they come to me the first year, they're learning all the routines, all of my expectations, and then they have that. They know that I'm the same person. This is my classroom. These are the standards I expect, and then they meet those. So when they come back the next year, they don't have to relearn those things or get to know a new teacher. It's still me. I know them already. I had that relationship with them. And so we can dive right into learning, and they can do the thing that I expect of them, whether I've even told the whole class that or not. And the others will go, oh, they're standing in line like this. I need to stand in line like this. Or, oh, when we're at the rug, we're quiet. So the expectations are already there, and it's a good kind of peer pressure, meaning that the second year students get to be leaders, whether they're actually leadership material or they would even think they're leadership material. They're older. So the younger ones are looking up to them going, oh, this is what we do. This is what's expected before I even say anything. One time a student was doing something and the older student said, oh, Miss Campbell wouldn't go for that. You better stop. And I didn't even have to say it. And I was like, okay, well, let's keep moving. And I didn't even address it. I just went on. So for expectations for classroom management or how I run my class, that's helpful because I don't have to re-say it again. But then like expectations in, or say ELA, for example, we have 4 different reading groups that are first grade, second grade, and they're all intermingled where they are in their reading. I have very high group. I let them know, since you're reading at this group, I have expectations set for you, and I'm going to rejoice and I'm going to push you where you're going. However, you may not. Since it is a family setting in our comfortable classroom, you may not look down upon other people because they're at the grade or they're at the reading level where they are. We're rejoicing. I'm rejoicing with you at each stage and each age. And then let's go farther. For example, in math, on the board, I'll do a first grade math problem, and I'll do the exact same math problem for second grade, but add hundreds, and then add thousands, but the exact same other numbers. And then the kids see it. And so they get to see the whole process, not just what am I learning next? It's the whole gamut of, oh, this is what's expected when you go to second grade. So of course I'm going to be doing that, rather than, why am I doing this?
It builds. It's a building process. And not only with that, but having the children for 2 years. So there's the expectation. There's the natural leadership that builds in. But you also have all of that year experience with the group you had previous. So you know where they are academically. You know where they are socially. You know their strengths, their weaknesses. You have a great relationship with parents because you had it for a whole year. And so all of those elements only get better. And so it's most definitely it's great.
Yeah, having the same teacher for 2 years allows a student to get to know the teacher and the teacher's expectations, like you were talking about. And then so like Jessica talked about in the book, as opposed to spending the whole first quarter or so getting to know a student, you could just pick up right where you left off, even after summertime. And there's something too that I think one of the students that Jessica talked to mentioned, which was there's a sense of safety that comes about when the student knows the teacher, feels loved and seen and understood and all that, where that sense of safety allows for true learning. Because in the absence of that safety, there's this sense of, I'm afraid to fail, but knowing that you're going to be supported when you do is pretty cool.
That automatically, that sense of safety and confidence also goes on to the next group that is coming in. And so just like, nope, you're not going to do that, they also feel trusted and safe. And those other children will just naturally like feel it and fall into line and into place with that. So it's really powerful. It's really powerful. Can I share something about students who maybe not, and I think you even touched on this a little bit, about how students who are maybe not gifted in leadership, by default, because they're the oldest in the class, they automatically have a built-in foundation for practicing leadership.
Yes.
Just and where those students who, in a one-size-fits-all classroom, you've got your leaders. They're always your leaders. They're going to be strong in friendships. They're going to be strong in academics. They're going to probably be strong in their ability to play sports or communicate well, or a mixture of all of that. And those students are always going to be the leaders in those realms. But when you mix that up and you have older students learning from younger students, you automatically create a stage where the leaders have a chance to be leaders. But then also that next year, and they go in and then they are the young ones again, it's also a natural humbling position for them, because sometimes those students need to be humbled a little bit. And so they have to have a chance to watch and learn. And that's good also. And then it gives other people opportunities to rise.
That is awesome. I've actually never thought about it that way, but I experienced that when I left junior high and went to high school, and then I experienced that again when I got to college from high school. But that's like every 4 years or so. So having our students go through that cycle every 2 years, it's pretty cool.
Because a good leader is also needs to be a good follower. They need to know what it means to be humble and how to serve and not just be the one calling the shots all the time. And so it's really important. And I love the way that when we have 2 ages in a class, that happens every other year for those students.
Let's talk maybe about some of the challenges that this poses, approaching education this way. So Becky, maybe you can speak to how do you work with a 2-year age range?
It's a great question. At the beginning of each year, we assess where the students are now, like this moment, and then we know what we're working with. We have a great team who does that so that we can go, okay, this is the standard. This is where we are to meet the standards, and this is how we get there. So it's not just already written out for me to do it.
Right.
You know, like I have to.
And is the standard based on each student then?
No, it's Missouri standards for, for what we need to meet for that year or those 2 years. So we assess them, we find out where they are and what they're capable of, and then we try to push them harder, whether it's in reading or math. The challenges would be when I don't know, like that first week, trying to figure out who is a really good reader and who needs help in reading. I prayed about it, man. I was like, Lord, help me, give me wisdom, because I want to push that high student and be the best for them and not allow them to become bored and then a nuisance in the class, as well as I want to encourage this student and not like push them too hard and too fast and then just discourage them.
Right.
So I need to uphold this one while encouraging this one, and it's hard. I spoke with my sister-in-law about it, and she said, there's no way that I could do what you do. I just stay on this. I'm like, but you are in reading. But anyway, with the reading part, it is hard. And with math, I have students who are doing first grade math. I have students doing second half math, second grade, second half math, and then third grade and third grade, the second part of third grade math. But I try to find where they are and then push them to where they need to go.
Is it easier at all with those returning students?
It is, because we can pick up where we left off. So we assess at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. So I can see some of my students last year were struggling readers even at the end of the year, and something happened. They grew up. They found a book series that they loved, and they just ate it up. So then they're like, hey, I read this book over the summer. Not showing off to the class, but to me. And of course, I celebrated and rejoiced and did a little jig. I danced for them, and I just wanted to let them know I was so proud of them. That's a lot. That's hard work. Reading is hard work, and all the learning and the breakdown of it all. And they did it, and so I celebrated. So we just got to, he kind of let, whatever. But inside he was like, gold star.
Yeah,
he felt seen.
That's awesome.
I would say one of the biggest challenges with this is honestly on the teacher, and then also on the parent. So the 2 challenges would be teacher and parent. The teacher has to, there's a lot more planning involved with it, because you're meeting the needs of a varied range of levels and abilities. And so within reading and writing, math, you have to know where that child is, and then it's our goal to meet them where they are in those different levels. And so it's a lot more planning. The other, I think, challenge, which is time intensive, and it takes time to make sure you've got all of your materials in line for that. But once you get into routines and you figure it out, it's not so hard. So the other part of that is, as that teacher of that classroom, you really know 4 different groups of standards and benchmarks of where that next step is that you're going for that child or for that level. And so what's next. So when I was doing, first and second grade, I knew what the kindergarten curriculum was, because you have children who are not not
Not
meeting
on,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. And then in the second grade, I knew what the third grade was doing. I knew what those next goals were because that's what I was preparing them for.
Yeah, and some of them could have already started working on that.
And they do start, and it's our responsibility to make sure they do start that. The cool thing, though, is like Mrs. Campbell said earlier, if it's writing a sentence, 3-sentence paragraph, for that one that's not quite there, you know what? Your goal is to just do 1 sentence. Your goal is to do 3. Your goal is to do 5. Wow, you're really mastering a 5-sentence paragraph. I want you to add in some flowery language. And so you just you look for ways to naturally make it more challenging and difficult. But the second challenge, I would say, is parents. It's so different from what our society is used to. We're used to, and we've had now years and years of everyone doing a one-size-fits-all. And so the challenge of helping educate people, families, and the people who we serve of what are the benefits of this and why are we doing it? Because when you get used to doing one thing, it's a scary thing to do it different. And so I think that that's one of our bigger challenges is communicating what are we doing and how are we doing. And once again, that takes additional time.
How would you say having so at Prodigy, we have a collaborative teacher in the classroom. How would you say having a collaborative teacher helps you to meet the needs of these multi-age classrooms?
I'm so glad you asked that because that was on the tip of my tongue to say, I can do all these things. However, I have a teacher in there with me who knows where they are and what they need to do. Or I'll say, hey, that one needs to do a 2-sentence. That one needs to do a 3. And make sure that it's, there's a capital letter and a period. Give me some adjectives. Give me, like we're on the same team there, and the class sizes aren't that large. It's smaller, so it's a family atmosphere. They know the expectations, and even the students don't question, well, why are you making me do 3 sentences and that one only do 1? Like they know. Even one time I had a student worked best eating a snack. So I let her have a snack. And one student asked, why does she get to eat a snack? And I said, well, why do you get to hold that ball during listening? Because he needed to hold it, he needed to do that to
Have a stress ball?
Yeah, just to stay focused and quiet and keep his hands to himself. So every student is unique, and we all have our best ways of learning, and we just get the opportunity to do that with our CTs, our collaborative teachers in there. And so if I'm working with this group of students in reading, she is making sure all the other students are on task in their writing center and their word work or as they're reading. And she's the one during ELA, during English, to then make sure they're on task while I'm currently on task with my students in front of me.
And she's actually covering your classroom right now, so you can be here.
She's pretty amazing.
She's my wife, partner.
Mrs. Campbell touched on that it's okay. Students don't question when one student has something different from the other. And that's because we start from the premise that all are different. And when you do that, you don't have these feelings of that's not fair or that, once again,
You remove
that's
the sense of comparison.
There's no comparison. And then the walls fall off, and then you celebrate. You celebrate whenever someone makes a win. And the wins all look different, but the wins are important for that child. And it's so exciting to see everyone celebrating wins. And it's just wonderful. It's just wonderful.
I had a parent this week ask me to allow their student to give a book report and asked to do it in class. And I said, actually, can you do the book report at home? And he can just present it to the classroom. She was like, okay, let's do it. Now, nobody else in my classroom has done a book report. He's reading, he just read the BFG. Okay, so second grader reading the BFG. And other kids are like, I think I saw that movie. Or can you tell me what it's about? So he stood up in front of the class and he had to present what the book was about, and he drew a picture, and then he explained it, and then he took questions, and nobody else did that. And yet it was like, all right, let's go. We celebrated him. They asked great questions. And then we transitioned to the next thing. And I hope it happens again. That was really fun.
I was going to say, it'll probably inspire more children. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year, every child has done that. That's
Very exciting.
Yeah, it's super fun.
I'm an older brother, and my mom could definitely vouch for this, that when I was a kid, everything that I did, my younger brother wanted to do too. And so setting up these multi-age classrooms as a sort of family sense, the younger students are like, well, I want to do what they're doing. It's not in like a jealous way or like oh, I'm worse than you because I can't do that way. It's just like I've got something to strive for.
Yes, we all look forward to that next step and to that next age, and it takes on a different level of, instead of it's the teacher saying, you need to do this, it's, oh, my peers are doing this. I can't wait to get to that. And yeah, it's exciting for them.
I think something important to note here too is that as we're talking about the Prodigy 21 in this podcast, that if you pulled out any one of these practices, it wouldn't be successful. I'm generalizing here, but it probably wouldn't be successful without the application of all of the practices. Because like we were just talking about, for the multi-age classrooms, you have to also have that individualized instruction, and you also have to have that the extra teacher so that you can just expand your capacity to meet the students' needs. There's a lot of other ones, but those are just the first two that come to mind that we've discussed already.
So there's another thought that was in the book that that we do and we talk about, and that I might be going on a tangent right now, but in terms of back to the looping and having children for 2 years, it's one thing for math, for reading, and for writing. But for social studies and science, it does something totally different, because we have set up a 2-year rotation for different aspects of our curriculum.
Topics, right?
And for topics. And so for social studies and science, we don't do the typical rotation that the rest of the state does. But what we do is we take one topic, like plants and animals, which is what we're doing this year, a lot with plants and animals and living versus non-living. And instead of hitting on that every year, we've taken that and we're combining. Let's just take first and second grade. We're combining the standards for first and second grade of what they would do typically into one group. And that way you have a longer period of time to learn about that. And so you can go deeper with it. You can take meaningful field trips. You can have guest speakers. You can do engaging project-based learning with it, to where it's not, oh, we have 1 week to hit all of these topics and then we're done. We get a longer time of impact. And so, that next year you're not doing plants and animals, but then you come back to it again the following year when you enter your 3rd and 4th grade year. Yeah. So,
and then you go deeper, more to higher level topics and such.
Correct. So that's one other element of this that's also really powerful and has opened up doors for deeper learning, especially when you integrate then the project-based learning and the community as classroom. And so you're right. It's taking one out of the 21, but when you add in the other elements, it's really powerful. And one other thing I would like to add is when we do the multi-age classrooms, is the special needs students in our classrooms, they feel loved, they feel welcomed, they don't feel singled out or like they are different. Rather, because we automatically have it set up to meet the needs
of the individual.
They feel special, and because we celebrate the uniqueness of what that child is, what they're creating and what they're completing and what they are doing in the class, the children all come around each other, they support each other, and they celebrate each other. And so it's just wonderful. They don't feel singled out or different.
Yeah, that family structure naturally invites in the student who may otherwise be seen as an outsider. Okay, well, this has been great, guys. I think people are going to be really interested in this one because this definitely is one of the more obvious things that we do uniquely here at Prodigy. But, as we talked about today, there are some amazing benefits. And, we wouldn't want to do it any other way, I don't think. So thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us. Good job.